Hello and welcome to episode 197 of the Arena Regulars podcast. I'm Zach,
And I'm Jeff.
and we're your source for drunken Magic the Gathering arena content.
That's right. Just a couple of regular guys drinking some irregular beers, talking about Magic the Gathering, in particular, the online client, MTG Arena.
That's right. And this week, it's one of my favorite episodes. There was just a Pro Tour this last weekend, Pro Tour Final Fantasy in Las Vegas, Nevada, and we're going to talk all about what happened. But first, each week we bring a beer. We drink it, we rate it on a scale from bronze to mythic, just like the tiers in Arena. So with that, Jeff, what is on tap?
All right. So a while ago, I picked up some beers from my favorite brewery around these parts, which is Fairweather Brewing. Made sure to share some of them with you. And this one has been sitting in my fridge for basically since I did that. And I was always like, is it time? Is it time? And I've decided now it's time. I'm
Yes.
excited for this episode. I'm excited for this beer. And so the beer I brought today is called Pocket Panther. This is a tropical stout, and it's described as a stout with espresso, vanilla, yerba mate,
You're.
coconut,
Mm-hmm.
and fancy molasses. And that part's really exciting because I want to know
Yeah.
why the molasses is fancy.
It's so
But
fancy. Yeah, it's yerba mate.
yerba mate. I figured
Yeah.
it was probably that. But okay, yerba mate. So I guess that's the coconut and the molasses and potentially the yerba mate is what make this tropical. And then this
Mm-hmm.
espresso and vanilla are pretty typical stout ingredients.
That
So
is interesting. I mean, like the yerba mate is always like tea flavors. So the
gotcha.
coconut feels like the most tropical
So it's the
part about it.
coconut that's making it tropical, and then the
Yeah,
molasses is kind of bringing in some sweetness.
or something. Yeah, molasses, like rum, because that's where we get that. So interesting. I'm excited to try this out. I tropical and stout don't always go together, so I
I don't think I've ever had something that was labeled that, or at
never.
least I haven't had one that I remember. So
Yeah. So either it was I was gonna say either it was really bad or meh, but if it was really bad, I would remember it. So it
I'd
was
remember and I would avoid this one. So
yes, yeah. All right. Well, Jeff, let's crack it open. Let's start this thing out. Here we go. Huh. And with
I don't
that,
even
we
know what
have
color to expect here, you know?
black.
Could be, but could it be light? Like, I wouldn't even be surprised if it was purple.
Oh yeah. Well, we do drink a lot of purple beers on this podcast, but it is in fact black.
Yeah,
But
it's pretty deep. Pretty deep.
yeah, it's dark, deep and dark. Anyway, with that, we have some magic news. As there are no spoilers in sports, there's no reason to bury the lead when we say congratulations to Ken Yukihiro for winning his first Pro Tour. Uh,
Yes. About time.
yeah, this is his eighth top finish.
He,
So
he was overdue.
yeah, he's been around for a very long time, and it was phenomenal to watch him finally win. I was rooting for him through the entire top eight, which we'll get into a little bit more. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, Mono Red taking it down. Love to see
Yeah.
it.
And this is the type of pro tour that, like, this was his shot, you know? Like, this is his
Yeah.
metagame to dominate because he likes to
Hmm.
play these kinds of aggressive decks.
Hmm.
And oh, he's just such a likable guy if you
Yeah,
see any, like, interviews with him or anything. So
he's
I was really glad to see him pull one out here.
yeah. You've been talking about Ken for years. Like since we started the
Yeah,
podcast, he's been one of your favorites.
back when we used to draft players for these things, I would always pick him.
Yeah,
It's like,
he
gotta
wasn't.
do it when I
Yeah,
didn't have you on my fantasy team. You're
it's true.
welcome.
Yeah, he was not doing so great back then, but now killing it. Love to see that. Also at the Pro Tour, it's of course a Magic-Con. That's the way that these kind of work now. There's
Yeah.
like four Magic-Cons a year, and there's three Pro Tours and a World Championship. And there's a bunch of sneak peeks of future sets, including the next set, Edge of Eternities. So we're going to talk a bit more about all those previews coming up. And even one that's from a set that's even further away. But we'll we'll talk about that in a little bit. Oftentimes we try not to talk too much about spoilers because well, too much about early spoilers, just because we do want Final Fantasy to be able to run its course. But hey, it's new cards to look at. We gotta at least touch on them a little bit.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Also, don't forget this weekend is the historic qualifier weekend, so that's June 28th and 29th. If you want to play in that, and you are not qualified currently, the play-in event is the 27th. I believe both best of one and best of three are that Friday. So, it's basically the day this episode comes out, so maybe you'll miss it, but hopefully you don't.
I would like to quickly complain about this for a second.
Okay.
So I've been trying to play in one of these qualifier weekends. It's been a long time since I played in one. So I was like, let me qualify for one and just like try my hand at it again. And so I think I tried in like April. The April month I don't completely remember why, but I wasn't able to play in it. So I keep doing this thing where I'm like, okay, I can't play in the next one. So let me look at the format that's coming up after that, practice that format, and then when time push comes to shove, then I could try to qualify for that one, and then I'll be like a month ahead of the metagame, like I'll have so much practice. And so it all started, I think, in April. And then the May one, when I looked at it, it was on Mother's Day. And I was like, well, I can play in that. Like, you know, my wife is a mother to two children, also have a mother of my own. We had plans. So I was like, I really wish they hadn't put this on Mother's Day, but all right, I'll start practicing for the next one. And then I was like, well, the next one's historic. Whatever, I'll play some bit of historic. I'll figure it out. And then early this month, when I was like, when is this thing, by the way? And I see it's June 28th and 29th, which is my son's birthday is the 28th. My other son's birthday is the 29th. And my wife's birthday is also the 29th. So of all the pairs of days where I cannot possibly play, this was the most you can't play. So it's just been like 3 months in a row where like the one weekend in the month that is an absolute no-go has been what they've chosen for this. And there seems to be no rhyme or reason to it. It's not like the last weekend of the month every time. Like it shifts from first to last to middle. And it just always happens to be like, no, you can't play in this one, Jeff. You could have played any other weekend in this month, but not this one.
I remember you telling me that you're like practicing for it, and I had it in the calendar being like, I don't think that's gonna work out for Jeff. Be able to play.
Imagine just being like, nah, I'm gonna. Sorry, guys, I'm busy.
I got a tournament to win.
I know it's everyone in my family's birthday this weekend, but
but yeah. Oh man,
I gotta play a format I don't even like. So.
Oh man. Anyway, so hopefully this next one, we should just look up what
next one is standard. So I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready. I'm sure I can't play in it for some reason, but.
A classic. Anyway, there is big news coming up for next week. It's actually not this week, but there's going to be a banned and restricted announcement on Monday, June 30th. So we don't know what's happening with it. There was something in one of the articles that had announced that the banned and restricted announcement was going to have some sort of like arena implications or something. There was something, I don't even know where that was, but it was talking about, we'll talk about how that's going to affect arena at a later date or after that announcement comes out. So there is something specifically happening to banned and restricted announcements and how they're affecting arena. So I don't know if that means they're going to change the amount of wildcards they give you or what they're going to do with that. That makes me a little nervous as far as this banned and restricted announcement in general. But I do like we've known about this for a little bit as far as the
right.
The
this
DNR.
Is the scheduled one, essentially,
yes.
Right?
So at least we know about that, but it still is. I mean, I like that it's right after the PT, so we can kind of look back on the PT and be like, "Hey, like these cards," which we'll talk about in literally a second, on which ones kind of need to go. But so I think that's good, but at the same time, the arena implications make me super nervous. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen. And if it's going to ruin my day or actually make it better, I don't really know.
I'm a little nervous too because if it's like, oh, we're making a change that insulates players even more from bannings in
Yeah,
Arena, they would announce that now. Like they would just tell you that. They'd be like,
they
"Oh, but
would.
don't worry, we're gonna make it even less painful for
They
bannings to happen."
exactly. And that's why I'm like, what's going on with this thing?
Like you don't slow roll a change that makes people less nervous. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like,
Yeah, we're gonna make you nervous by telling you there's something that's gonna happen that you don't know yet, but you'll know soon. That just
yeah.
makes people nervous. It's gonna make us more nervous. So, anyway, we can kind of speculate on what is gonna get banned. I would say most likely it'll affect standard. I would be really surprised if it was anything else, or not, or if
There's
standard
a
was excluded. I think.
there's a card that I would be very surprised if it's not banned in standard.
So, well, I guess we should probably talk about that now. The Pro Tour was Pro Tour Final Fantasy, and looking at the standard metagame was crazy.
Yeah.
42.3% of the field was Is It Prowess, which is 42 is a lot. That just seems extremely dominant. The other ones behind it are Azorius Oculus at about 20%, and then Mono Red Aggro at like 11%. And I think the other, like, people saw this and were like, whoa, that's crazy. Is It Prowess is everywhere. But then as we come into like the top 8, it was a crazy top 8 for this tournament because like there were two different decks that were being played. You were either playing Is It Prowess or Mono Red Aggro. And the way that it just happens to work out is that it was all mirror matches until the finals. So like all of the Mono Red players were on one half of the bracket, and all the Is It Prowess
Right.
players were on the other half of the bracket.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's funny.
Yeah, it was bizarre. So it was just like, all right, Mono Red versus Mono Red, go, you know? And then it
Twitch
was,
chat must have loved that.
yeah.
They hate aggro mirror matches.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen anything get more like hatred out of Twitch chat than aggro mirror matches.
Yeah, they just like are constantly complaining or just think, just flip a coin, or whoever goes first just wins.
Yeah.
And it's obviously not necessarily that at all if you've ever played, but there it feels like it at some points for sure. I can understand the feeling of, well, it doesn't really matter. It's just whoever has the better hand and whoever goes first. But a
I
lot
think
of it
that's
is people forget that aggro, like your mulligan decisions are so important in aggro that you have to make much more aggressive mulligan decisions because the first 2 or 3 turns are so important
yeah.
that if you fumble on them or don't have anything to do, you have an unplayable hand.
Yeah, I mean there's a lot obviously that goes into playing aggro.
Yeah.
And I think that feeling of like, oh, it's just whoever has the better hand and however it lines up or whatever. That is just uh watching a mirror match when you don't play that deck, I think can have that feeling
Yes.
because you're missing a lot of the subtleties. But when you play it and you've played that mirror match before, and like one thing when you play a popular deck, you tend to lose the mirror match a lot at the beginning because your opponents just tend to know the deck better than you because you're just starting. And it's something you actively work on, and then you're like, oh, like you start to see all that stuff, and the mirror match has become one of the more interesting Magic games because it's almost like the feeling is opposite to what's actually true because in other matchups, it is not just a 50-50. It is like someone is favored. It's like, oh, just because of your deck choice, you're 70% to win here. So it's almost those games are less about play skill, right? But then the rhetoric is always, oh, it's a mirror match. It's the same deck, right? It's 50-50. It's just a coin flip. It's like, well, no, that means that the players aren't getting helped by their deck at all. So if one person's always winning the mirror match, that's because they're a great player.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to stand on there. Like,
Hmm.
so it's always funny that like the translation of, oh, it's 50-50 turns into there's no play skill involved in it. And it's like,
Yeah. It's like I don't think those kind of may like work out to be the same thing.
yeah,
I do wonder if the top eight, because the finals, of course, because they're on two sides of the bracket, the finals is Mono Red versus Is It Prowess.
yeah.
Shout out to Ian Robb, who made it to the finals with Is It Prowess, who also top eighted the last Pro Tour for Aether Drift. Ian Robb
Way
did,
to go,
which is pretty
Ian.
good. Yeah. Also, Yu Chin Liu, who was playing Mono Red, also top eighted Aether Drift. So
Yeah,
neither of them like won or made it to the finals, but that was crazy to me. Two of the players from the first Pro Tour top eighted the second Pro Tour of the year. That's big.
some good players on our
Yeah,
hands.
definitely ones to keep in mind when we're starting to draft players for the World Championship, as we like to do.
Yeah, I noticed that as well because I went to high school with a guy named Yu Chen Lu. So I
Oh,
was like,
really?
whoa. And then I checked, I was like, it wasn't him. And I was like, oh, okay. Unless he's changed a lot in appearance since we went to
Yeah,
high
yeah.
school. And
And also like moved
also,
to China and yeah,
yeah, like maybe he
uses
was from China and moved here, but like, I don't think so.
and then
Pretty
moved
sure he was
back and
born
then
here or something.
yeah.
But I was just like, is that him? And then I was like, no, it's not him. But then when I saw his name again this time, I'm like, oh man, that Yu Chen guy who was not my high school colleague is really good.
Is it very good? Yeah. So I wonder what the top eight would have looked like if there was a bit more of a mix between the mono red and the prowess decks, and if would mono red have been would we have gotten a mirror match in the finals if that was the
Right.
case? Would mono red be able to beat out the Ace of Prowess? I don't know. But as we start to talk about like banned cards or cards that need to be banned in standard,
Hmm.
a lot of eyes are looking towards. I mean, the normal suspects, which is Monstrous Rage, is always a big suspect.
Yeah.
There were 26 copies of Monstrous Rage in the top eight, and
Yeah.
so that is definitely one of those markers where people are like, "Hey, this card, there's too many copies in the top eight. We got to get rid of it." But there is some pushback out there saying that that is not the culprit. That's not the card that needs to be banned. Obviously, Corey Steelcutter is on that list of
Hmm.
cards to be banned because it was a gigantic like part of the meta share. It's very resilient and fast and scary, and that deck in general, because of it, has people like main boarding hate against it, and that's when you kind of know that some decks are a little bit too strong. Is there a different card that you were thinking, Jeff, that you in particular thought, hey, this card can't be here?
Well, okay, so I said there's a card I'm surprised if it's not banned. The card is
Yeah.
Monstrous Rage. I actually don't think Monstrous Rage needs to be banned from like a power level perspective or even like when I play against it, I'm never like, oh man, I just can't beat that card. I mean, obviously there are some draws where you're like,
Yeah.
whatever. But generally, like it's always super obvious when it's coming, and you can make certain blocks and play in a way.
But
Like
it
there's
isn't.
counterplay to it.
Yeah.
But when it's 26 copies, I think their hands are tied. Like people have been complaining about this. People have called for a ban on this card, and then the Pro Tour happens and it's 26 copies in the top eight. I think they kind of have to,
Yeah.
even if it's not. I think the people are right. It's not necessarily the underlying culprit, but it is by far the best red pump spell. It makes it ubiquitous, and it maybe could open up some like, well, what do you play when it's banned? There are actually different options depending on metagame, or like, and rather than just always you always play Monstrous Rage in that slot.
Yeah.
So I think it could lead to, some interesting stuff. Probably you just slot in whatever's next best into the archetypes and like continue to dominate with your red aggressive decks. But I think they just have to. They have to. Like it's people asked for a ban before the format and then or before the Pro Tour, and then the
And
Pro Tour
then
happened and basically like
It's
prove
there.
them right in a sense. I don't think they can, from a marketing standpoint, almost like realistically continue to defend the inclusion of this card in the
Of
format.
Monstrous Rage. I do think it's interesting because some of the Is It Prowess decks were playing less copies of Monstrous Rage because we didn't have like not every deck had 4 copies,
Right.
but they were playing Wild Ride, which is like a similar looking card but gives haste instead, for some ways to obviously rebuild after a board wipe is tend to be what the purpose of that card is, or
Yeah.
have just a crazy turn of prowess stuff, which does give me a little bit of hope that Monstrous Rage. I love Monstrous Rage. Gives me a little bit of hope Monstrous Rage will not get banned. Um, Jim Davis put out a video explaining the card that he thinks should be banned, and I was interested to hear. He was talking a bit about Corey Steelcutter, but I think I agree with this other one. Is that Manifold Mouse is like the hidden boogeyman, that like people were pointing at it a lot. It's part of the mice package for the mono red decks of like the 3 mice, Heartfire Hero,
Yeah.
the Challenger, and Manifolds. And Manifold is the one that does the best impersonation of Embercleave with Monstrous Rage.
Right.
If they didn't have Double Strike, I think that Monstrous Rage would be strong but not kill you as fast as it does in this format. And I would also like a Manifold Mouse ban, even though I personally own 4 copies of that card, and I would play that in Standard if I had
Yeah.
to pick a deck. If they ban Manifold Mouse, all the times, like every set we talk about, look at these new mono red cards would be really cool. This was so cool in mono red, and it just you can never put that together because the mice package is just so good. There's
It's
just
just going
no
to be better.
reason to
Yeah.
play any other 2 drops or 1 drops. You always want to play the mice package. So it's like, okay, well, never mind. I guess we can't play any of these cards. I guess Hazaret isn't good enough, or Bastronaut, we can't play that, or all these cards that we look at and hope will be able to crack in or make a different, interesting mono red deck. If they got rid of Manifold Mouse, we might actually have multiple mono red decks, and you can choose your flavor. But
Yeah.
but all of them would play Monstrous Rage, of course. So
See, that's a good argument, I think, for the manifold mouse, because you have to approach this from the perspective of the banning community. I think your goal here is to not ban Corey Steelcutter
for sure.
because the card is brand new and people really like it. And so, what can you ban instead? I think Monstrous Rage is the easy one because it's a pump spell, right? Like, yeah, people like it, but they like it because it's just raw, a really
Powerful
high
card.
power
Yeah.
level pump spell. Um, it's not it's not like facilitating archetypes kind of in the same way. It's just like this card's just good. It adds some raw power to your game plan of get them dead quick. And that's like the theme it enhances. Manifold Mouse, like it is the mouse package is kind of like this is a kindred thing. And so if you want to do the mouse thing, I think the problem is like people aren't really building mouse decks. They take the 3 good cards that all synergize with each other and cram them into every red aggro deck. And like you
Yeah.
said, pushes out other things you could be doing. And I think if you ban almost any one of those 3 mice, it's basically the same thing. Like, because playing only having 2 makes it so much worse than
Yeah.
having
Well,
3.
the Manifold Mouse is the only one that cares about mice. The other 2 only care about being targeted by stuff. So, like, then they just become mono red cards. And Manifold Mouse is like, no, you want to make sure you play Emberheart Challenger. Like, you want to play Heartfire Hero because they are mice. And if you get
Right,
rid of
but
the
if
one
you
that's.
can't play Emberheart Challenger, there's no good 2-drop mouse replacement, and so you can't play Manifold Mouse either, kind of thing. Unless you're dedicated to the mouse package, I
Gotcha.
guess is what
Okay.
I'm saying.
I understand what you're saying. Like, you could get rid of Heartfire Hero and just be like, take that away, and then Manifold immediately becomes useless.
Right, and so it depends how much you want to ban. If you just banned
Sure.
Manifold Mouse, the other 2 are probably still getting played. if you ban one of the other two, you're kind of taking out two out of three
That's
because
true. You're
you
right. You're
can't
right.
really play the Manifold Mouse without the
Without the rest of the
without
mice.
eight. I think maybe you can. I don't know, but
Yeah, because if you take out Emberheart Challenger, well, number one, people would be like, "Why the hell are you doing that?"
yeah,
And number two, it would be like, you still have the one into the two, and so you probably want to take either Manifold or Emberheart, or sorry, or Heartfire Hero.
if it were me, I don't think they're gonna do this because this would look weird. But I think I would consider the Heartfire Hero ban, just to open up diversity of one drops and game plans. Um, but also like you're saying, if they're locked in to banning Monsters Rage, which I think they might be, are you banning Manifold Mouse at that point when it no longer does the Embercleave thing? Or at least you don't have the free like I give a ton of power and trample.
Yeah, because you would need to have both of them on the battlefield, and if you get the token copy, then yeah, you deserve to get the double strike and all that stuff.
Right, the token copy is not the problem. It is
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is the build your own
It's
Embercleave that
build
is
your own
killing
Embercleave.
people. Yeah.
I don't know, but I think that the meta would look more interesting if they got rid of one of those pieces as opposed to Monstrous Rage. Because then, because the thing with Monstrous Rage is that I don't know if you straight, like, yes, we were talking about Wild Ride, but I don't know if you immediately just slot in a different pump spell. Like,
If it doesn't give trample, I don't think you want it, right?
no.
And I think the options that give trample are just bad compared.
Yeah.
So you're
Or
probably
too
doing
expensive.
something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you probably just, yeah, play a different card entirely, which
Yeah.
does make Heartfire Hero worse. But I don't know. I love the double strike Monsters Rage Dream. It's fun, but I also know it's kind of run its course. We've had this deck for a long time. It's moved through a bunch of different iterations, and I loved playing it when it was Gruul back when we were playing Picnic Ruiner and stuff. Like that was the deck I was
Right.
playing. And now that it's become more streamlined and is the thing, it's not the deck that I gravitate toward nearly as much. I have a lot of the pieces, but
And it's been
I
the thing, like you said, for
for
long enough.
since
Like,
Bloomborough, like we've had it almost an entire year now. So and it's showing that like it's not getting new pieces. Like I guess the newest piece that Ken Yukihiro was playing with Self Destruct, which is how he actually won the final 2 points of damage, was using Fling essentially.
nice.
But yeah, so I don't know. It's interesting, because we will have Monstrous Rage for another year after this. Because when we go into Edge of Eternities, we will be rotating. We haven't switched rotation yet to the years, which I can't wait till that happens because that's going to be so much easier to keep track of.
Yeah.
Because holy crap, I still think like for all of Magic, it's just crazy that it took them 30 something years to be like, you know what, we should start the rotation at the start of the year. It just makes more sense.
Some like
Instead of-
intern says that. They're like,
Yeah,
oh my God, promote this guy.
yeah, because like what they've been doing is the start of the school year, which makes it seem like it's a kid's game, which like it's very obvious that's not Ken, how long has Ken been playing Magic? Like he's like the best players aren't like 16, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Yeah, yeah.
this isn't like a fighting game or some sort of Fortnite or something where like this is
Right. The people who care about rotation are
Yeah.
not that worried about school generally, and the ones that are
Exactly.
still in school, like they're devoted
Can't.
enough that it's not
it doesn't
not
matter.
relevant. Yeah.
Yeah. So like it also makes sense that like, hey, that from a kid perspective, you just got a bunch of money from Christmas. What do you want to spend it on? The new set of Magic that's coming out soon. You know, like save
I
it
need
for that.
new cards because
Yes.
my old ones rotated.
Exactly. And I just got a big influx of cash from my family. So there is that too. Anyway, that's a side tangent on how I'm very excited for 2027. 20 It's not this next year. It's not 26. It's got to be 2027, right?
Because it wouldn't rotate at the end of it wouldn't rotate in like September and then in
And then also rotate.
January.
But it will do that the other year, or it'll
Oh, it is
just,
going to do that? That's cool.
or maybe it doesn't double rotate. Maybe it just single rotates and just it's a
They just
little bit
push the. I
longer.
think they would just push the rotation back. But
Yeah, it makes it a little bit easier.
yeah,
So more sets get ripped out.
just leave Bloomburrow around a little longer.
I think that's what's happening, or whatever. Ugh. I mean, that's the issue here. But anyway, so like the cards from Dominant Area United and like that whole chunk will be gone with rotation. But so that means like temporary lockdown's gone. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on after that. But I don't know.
Remember,
Ban.
people were freaking out that Shieldred needed to be banned.
I know.
And rotation wouldn't take care of it.
Look at that. It did.
Yeah. Look at that. The best decks in the format are mono red, which the criticism was Shieldred pushes out red aggressive decks because they can't beat it.
Yeah.
And Shieldred's nowhere to be found.
Look at that. No, 0 copies in the top 8. I know we've talked about that before, but it's fun to like think about that again.
It's
just
fun
funny.
to just like, especially in moments like this, when you're like, oh man, this is way too strong and it's going to be around for 3 more years or 2 more years. Like, it's got to go. And you're just like, that's what people said. And I think legitimately, like, those feelings were legitimate at the time because Shieldred was everywhere.
Yeah.
That it's easy to feel that way. But it only takes like a few months. It only takes 1 more set or 2 more sets, and then nobody plays the card. Like,
Yeah. Or
So-
yes. So it has had its time, which is kind
and
of
it,
the
it
point.
pops back in and out every once in a while, which is kind of where it should be, right? Like
Yeah.
one of the best cards in a given set. That's a great place to have it. Where okay, every once in a while, I put a couple of copies of this in my sideboard or even main deck it if I'm feeling frisky.
Yeah. And then when it gets played against you, you're like, what the fuck? It's
How
'cause,
is this
like,
card still legal?
Yeah. And it's like all the decks they stop playing like 5 damage spells or whatever because they have to
Yeah.
deal with like they need to play suplex and stuff to get rid of Corey Steel Cutters, and then you play against the deck with Shieldred. You're like, God, what the fuck am I supposed to do against
About to
this?
cast your draw 10, and you're like,
Yeah,
oh,
you're like, oh.
ooh.
Yeah, draw 10. What are you playing?
I don't have a way to get this off the battlefield.
Ooh, okay. But yeah, so the BNR announcement should be very exciting. We'll probably talk a lot about it next week. But
They're gonna
speculations
come
are
out
fun.
and like ban Pixie or something. Just like, what?
Yeah. Or like, I don't know, VV is the other one that's just like, sometimes people just untap with VV and then the game's over. And
Yeah.
like, that was a key thing throughout the weekend, but I don't think that they could ban that card this early. It's such a chase card for the set that's out right now. Like,
That would be like an Omnath level banning, right? And
Yeah.
is VV an Omnath level dominant card?
no.
I don't think so.
No.
least
VV's
not
super
yet,
cool,
you
though.
know?
I mean, like, it was really fun to watch some of those games. You were like, oh, I think they are dead. Honestly, that's really what the Wild Ride is for. Your VV gets gigantic in 1 turn, and you get a bunch of mana, and then you give it haste, and then you attack and win.
I was gonna say that when
out
you
of
mentioned
nowhere.
Wild Ride at the start, but then I was like, does VV need haste to win?
No, but it does. Like, oftentimes, if they're at 18 and there's VV, it's like you can. Kill
Oh,
them.
it like doubles up, right?
Yeah,
so for
it
every spell
essentially
you
gives
play
it-
does 2.
Yes. It basically gives double strike. So plus 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
But the weekend was pretty sweet. I love watching the Pro Tour. This is so funny. We forgot to. Usually we start off and talk about how much of the Pro Tour we watched, but we did that in the pre-show, so we just completely missed it in the
Yeah.
actual episode.
Assumed everyone knew.
Yeah. But I was telling Jeff was able to watch a lot of the limited portion of the actual Pro Tour, which is usually my favorite. I love watching the pros draft. It's so much fun. And I was traveling this weekend, but I happened to have Wi-Fi on my flight, so I was able to watch some of it then. And then I got to catch up on it later. And then where I was staying in the mountains actually also had Wi-Fi, so I was able to watch it. I like built myself a fire because it was really cold where I was, so I built like a fire and was just watching. I was like, hell yeah! It was raining outside. I was like, this is the best. Like in a log cabin, watching the Pro Tour with the fire crackling. It was great.
That's amazing. You're just
Yeah.
like in the mountains, log cabin, fire, pro tour.
Yeah.
I'm over here like in 40-degree heat, which is how much is that Fahrenheit?
40 is like it's like 100 and it's close to 110.
Yeah, anyways, it was hot as hell
Yes,
here.
it was
And
very
I'm like moving rocks from my front yard to my backyard. It was less, and I'm like, man, I wish I was watching the pro tour right
Yeah.
now. Log cabin with
Yeah.
snow around me.
You didn't just put on your headphones and have it in your pocket.
No, no.
You don't want to listen to the stylings of was it Paul Cheon and Marshall Sutcliffe?
Yeah. I've never tried it to be honest, but
I used to do that. I would go to Costco and listen to the Pro Tour. It would
you
be like I'd be
listen to that,
shopping.
okay.
Yeah, and I would just listen to what they were saying. Or I'd drive around when I used to have to drive different places to do like gin tastings and stuff. I would have the Pro Tour on or the weekend or whatever was happening.
Yeah.
And it would just be like it would as if it was a podcast. I would just listen to it.
Yeah, I've never even thought about that. Like
Mm-hmm.
limited, that would have been a disaster because I don't know the cards well enough. It's too soon,
Oh.
the format type of thing.
And for me,
wouldn't
I'm
have been
like
able to listen. Yeah.
locked and
You're
loaded.
dialed
Know
in on
everything,
that.
Yeah.
You'd be like, he's looking at the following 4 picks.
Yeah,
Cool,
yeah.
what's he gonna do? I'd be like, I don't know what any of those cards do.
Yeah. I have no idea what's going on.
But standard, I could have kept up. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know what Core Steel Cutter does.
Yeah. Even just to kind of know either who won or who lost, sometimes it's just nice to listen to it.
And whether it was epic or just a routine beating.
Yes, exactly. But as always, in the limited portion, we start with our basically our Pro Tour champion from the last the last set. So Matt Nass got to start us
I was
off,
going to say, so is
And-
Matt Nass. Okay.
and watching that draft was rough. It just feels like every time people are on coverage drafting, it's like, oof, this deck is rough. Like this is hard. Like it keeps happening. Like Javier Dominguez's draft and
that
Aether
was a
Drift
train
was
wreck.
really bad.
Whenever the
and-
announcers are saying, like, well, I think he drafted us well,
Yeah.
but this deck's like a C minus.
Or like, I really love when they're like, "Oh, well, he's definitely going to take this card," and then he takes like the land. You're like, "What? Why would you do that?"
Oh, they must have some insight into like this one.
He must really like the Towns deck, I guess, which is kind of what was happening in Matt Nass's draft. He actually did okay, but it's one of those things where like, I think he lost his first match, and so we just kind of stopped watching him.
Right,
throughout
yeah,
the-
because you start watching, you're always in the winner's bracket or whatever.
essentially, or like when you get to the final one, you're just watching that.
Yeah.
But there was something notable. I just wanted to say this. We were watching Christian Baker in the second draft on day 2, who was the lone undefeated player from day 1. He went 8-0, and he also made it to the top 8. So nice job, capitalizing on that, Christian. But his draft wasn't crazy great, but there was a really cool draft in that pod, and Jody Keith built a mono black Zodiark deck. So Zodiark's the 5 pipped black god thing that like when it comes down, it makes your opponents, or you both sacrifice like your non-god creatures, and then every time a permanent is sacrificed, it gets a +1/+1 counter, and it's indestructible. So he had that card. He had Primal Odin, which is the summon that can kill your opponent when it attacks.
I know I know what Primal Odin does.
Yeah.
Because I have failed to declare blocks on it more than once in standard. Just be like, I'm not gonna block that thing.
yeah.
You're like, oh, right,
I
that's
died.
that card.
Yeah. That's so funny. Jody also Jody also had Jekt, which is from Final Fantasy X. He's like a 4-mana 4/3 that like when he deals damage to your opponent, he flips and basically ruins your entire day. Makes you discard a bunch of cards and then
Oh
you have to
yeah,
sacrifice a bunch of
I got
stuff.
hosed by that card in one of my draft games where it
Hmm.
was just like they played it. I was like, oh, well, I'm gonna play this chump blocker, and if they kill it, I guess I fucking lose.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
It's like, yeah. And so he had those three big bomb rares, and he also had a Sephiroth to round it out.
Oof.
And so like
Sephiroth's like the eighth best card in his deck or something.
yeah. And so he was able to build this mono black deck. Unfortunately, he only went 1 and 2, which made me really sad.
Oh,
But
bummer.
watching his deck in a match that he should have won, but it was the situation where he was doing really well, and he basically had to choose between playing Primal Odin to kill one of his opponent's trample creatures because he had two, or he could play Zodiark to make them sacrifice some of their smaller stuff. He played Zodiark to make them sacrifice stuff, and then he had an indestructible blocker. And his opponent attacked him with exactly lethal with trample damage, and he only blocked one of the creatures, and it got ice magic bounced back to his hand, and the trample damage came over and killed him.
Gotcha.
Where if you played Primal Odin, he would have killed one of the tramplers, and then he would have survived that turn. But it's one of those
Right.
toss-ups like you just don't know.
Yeah.
But one of those, it's just a bummer. Like I hate to see that. Like bounce the blocker on the trample creature. That's rough. But
Nice play from the opponent.
yeah, really good play from the opponent. I just made me sad because I really wanted that mono black deck to go the distance.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I just just because it actually I thought that Zodiark was going to be an absolute like piece of garbage trash card, and it's turning out to be like you can do it every once in a while.
Oh, nice.
Especially
Good
because
to know.
it was one of those things because we saw it in the draft sitting at Christian Baker's seat. You saw the Zodiark, you're like, oh, don't play that card. And you saw him open a Sephiroth later. You're like, oh, damn, that kind of sucks. And then later, we're just like, oh, yeah, Jody built that deck. You're like, yeah, somebody did it. That's awesome. At the Pro Tour. Hell yeah. And so I was really pulling for Jody after that.
Yeah. And I mean, he's at the top table, right? So it's not like some schmuck at the Pro Tour. It's somebody who's doing
he was-
well. And
he was
the
like-
tournament is on the line for him. It's
Yeah,
not like he's just like, it's a throwaway draft.
No, it was like 7-1. Being
Yeah.
like, this is the best deck I can build right now. It was just, that was sweet. It's always cool to see stuff like that at the top tables.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, really good stuff. Kind of ultimately through the draft portion, it seemed like you can build just about anything that you want. Like a lot of things are viable. It feels completely different than the Aether Pro Tour, where it was like, man, this is really not where you want to be. It was just a lot of the top tables were either like there was like Boros decks that were losing to like Izzet decks, and all sorts of stuff was going on. So
Yeah.
just really cool to see. Great draft format. Yeah, it was just a great weekend. I loved the Pro Tour.
Yeah. Super fun. I would say this one, like, so I've been playing a lot of standard, and I don't run into Izzet Prowess and Mono Red every
That
game
much,
or every
yeah.
other game, to be honest. Now, what am I like, gold or platinum or something? I haven't worked
Sure.
my way up all the way to the top, so I've been sort of fighting through the lower ranks just as I play. But it has not been a ubiquitous like opponent. It actually, honestly, I think the deck I've probably run into the most is the Yuna deck.
That unit deck is so annoying.
Yeah, and I'm always like, this deck's garbage, and then it gets me, and I'm like,
Yeah.
God damn it, it got me again.
It's like really low, and it's like, oh, it's just returning a bunch of enchantments and gaining a bunch of life, and
Yeah, it always feels like it just gets there, and they always, always, always have Yuna. Like they always have the mana to cast it, and like
well, they're like ramping on 3 with their like the thing about that deck, which is really cool, is that I've seen a bunch of different flavors of it, but the fun thing is like when you're playing your saga creatures, or
Yeah,
summons.
the Summon Fenrir is the one.
Yeah, that's the one
Yeah.
because that one helps you fix your mana to make sure you have it, and also you're totally in that deck. You're fine trading in them off. You don't care. You'll attack into anything.
Right.
You don't
Yeah.
need them to go off because you're just going to get them back for free. And so, oftentimes it's just like, yeah, well, okay, yeah, trade off with this, attack with
Oh yeah,
this.
that card like three it ramps you and then
Hmm.
you trade off, and if they don't want to trade off, like you get a +1/+1 counter on your next
On
thing,
your
and then
Yuna because you
yeah.
ramped, like
Yeah.
it's it's so annoying because
And
like
I'm always
Yuna's
like,
like
they always have Yuna, they always have the mana to cast Yuna, and they always have a graveyard full of stuff for Yuna.
mhm,
And I'm just like, how do they do that? I'm like, it's almost like they have a 2-drop that mills themselves and helps them hit land drops
mhm.
that really facilitates this entire deck. But a card like that would be a little too good, so I probably don't have anything quite like that. But it's funny because I was like hating on the deck, and then I'm like, the reason this deck can exist though is because
of Town
of
Greeter.
Town Greeter.
Yeah.
So
Uh, your boy, your favorite.
yeah.
Yeah. But no, that
But
is
that's the
funny.
other thing. They always have that on turn two. Like every fucking game I play against the unit deck, it's like tap land, turn two, Town Greeter.
Yeah.
Just like how do you never mulligan and always have that? When I play these decks, I'm like one land, no Town Greeter. Like
Hmm.
mulligan, mulligan. Oh, okay. I guess I have two lands and a Town Greeter in this hand. I guess I'll keep, and then I just get steamrolled
Yeah,
because I
you
had to put
play
my
you
Yuna on the bottom.
you mill all four Yunas into the yard.
Yeah, yeah. Whiff on the land. That's my experience with those decks.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
my opponent already had like a main deck Ghost Vacuum that they played on turn one or something. It's like,
yeah,
well,
yeah.
fuck me, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah, which is
Really,
kind
main
of
deck Leyline of the Void. Really?
really
Like,
well. I mean, that is the wildness of Arena, and it reminds you that like the Pro Tour and the Arena like ladder are very different. Um, because like
right.
if because it's one of those things where it's like if you're picking a deck to play for $50,000, are you going to play the Corey Steel Cutter deck? Are you going to play the Unit deck? That's what's hard
Yeah.
because you're like, a lot of the decisions are like when you're on
I'm gonna
Arena,
play
you
the
can,
Core Steel Cutter.
yeah, exactly. And so that's the decision a lot of people made, or
And that was
whatever.
my original point, right? Like, is I don't
Hmm.
feel this imbalance when I play. That
Hmm.
is what the Pro Tour is telling us. And so when I've been playing a lot of Standard, I was like, oh, I'm excited to see the metagame for the Pro Tour. And when I saw it, I was like,
Hmm.
what? Like, these decks are all there. But there are so many cool decks that I play against that are fairly common on Arena that are just like absent from the Pro Tour metagame.
Yeah,
And the decks that I play that have dominated the Pro Tour, when I play against them, I don't feel like they're dominant or unbeatable.
yeah,
And so again, part of that is like I'm probably playing, I'm playing generally against players that are like less experienced than me because I'm in the lower tiers. But also I think like to really edge out these decks, like you have to be really good
hmm,
to like they are dominant, but only at the top level of play. So I think that makes it interesting too with the bannings and stuff, because the format has felt fine to me just playing on Arena,
hmm,
but obviously the numbers from this Pro Tour tell a totally different story. Like the
yeah,
format is not fine, and I also wonder how much of that is because the Pro Tour is so soon after the new set. Like, who's gonna commit
sure,
to the Unideck when the Unideck
hmm,
like just became possible?
exactly. With this new thing, so that is true. And if they definitely felt like, oh, we could try to build this unit deck, but why are we wasting
You're not gonna get it
time?
right, and the
Yeah,
Core Steel Cutter deck's already right. So
hmm, yeah. It's one of those things. So yeah, we'll have to see what goes on with standard and everything, but yeah, just great pro tour. Congrats,
yeah,
Ken. Killed it. Love to see it. Love to see
but
that.
yeah, It's
As
I'm interested to see what happens.
Yes, definitely. But as we move on to standard in the future, there are some new cards and some reprints that are going to be important for the standard metagame as we come into Edge of Eternities. We got a few spoilers. Not us personally, but the world got a few spoilers, and I thought we should talk about them. But first things first, before we talk about new cards, let's talk about old cards and the thing that's most exciting to me currently, which is that we are getting 5 Shocklands back in standard, which means we'll probably get 5 more at some point.
Yeah.
But
So did we get the allied ones or the enemy ones?
all right, so we got a little bit of both. Usually, when they give us land cycles, they do all the allied pairs, which is all in the color wheel, all the ones that are touching each other. So white and blue, blue and black, black and red, stuff like that. Or the enemy ones, which are ones that don't touch each other. This time around, they gave us 3 enemies and 2 allies. So we have Breeding Pool, which is green blue, Godless Shrine, which is white black, Sacred Foundry, which is red white, and so those are all the enemies. Then we got Stomping Ground, which is red green, and Watery Grave, which is blue black. So we do have 1 land of each different color, or sorry, two of each color. So like there's 2 ones that produce white, 2 produce black, and so
Yeah.
on and so forth. But it's a funky twist, which is kind of nice. So it's not always like, oh, we're always doing this or always doing that. Having this
Right.
mix up is cool, but it also means like the set is kind of interesting because you're playing like, are there 5 color pairs in the set, and they're or what? I don't exactly know what's going on with the set. We only really got cards for these 2 color pairs if we're talking about gold cards. So I don't know if we're gonna have Azorius colored cards, or whatever. We'll
Right.
have to see. But Shocklands and Standard, Jeff, what do you think?
Good. I like Shocklands. I think Shocklands are like one of those timeless designs that it's just the right thing. Paying 2 life is just the right amount to charge for this kind of thing. And they've experimented, right, with like things that do other things, but you have to pay 3 life, et cetera, et
Mm-hmm.
cetera. And it's just like this is just a great design. And I think I just love having these. I think the one thing I always think about Shocklands is like if they weren't fetchable and
Mm-hmm.
like didn't trigger, like I'd be curious what that kind of land does,
Mm-hmm.
because that seems like the just the right design of like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, if you pay 2 life for this untapped, yes or no, and all the stuff about Shocklands is often around the fact that they're both basic land types and they're one of the
Mm-hmm.
first things to do that, which is that's almost like a historical thing. But I think the actual design on it is like, hey, if you want to pay 2 life, this can enter untapped. Otherwise, it enters taps. It's just like the right. It's just the right. It's the right design for these dual lands. So I'm a fan of having these. I'm always a little dubious of like, all right, we're giving you 5, and then maybe the other 5 will come later, or like almost certainly, but it comes enough later that you disturb sort of the mana bases,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the current environment where things care about basic land types,
Mm-hmm.
and so certain decks will be more playable than others when they do stuff like this.
Yeah,
So
but
I
you
think
shouldn't be upset because you have a white black one, Jeff. So
yes,
that is
yes.
good for you, right?
Well, there's no blood crypt in these unless I'm missing
No,
something
there's no
here.
blue, no blood crypt.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, but yeah, so that part I'm always like, okay. I do like it, like you're saying that they mixed up the
mhm.
allies and enemies instead of it, because when they always do the cycle of allies and enemies, then it ends up being like, oh, we have this format which is clearly better to play allied colored.
Every single
Like if
time.
you're going to be an aggro deck, you cannot play enemy colors or something,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I'm glad that they're just like mixing that up, and there are different ways you can mix it up between different sets to offer different mana bases to different colors
Hmm.
without it just being like this color gets worse mana than. Like enemies just get worse mana than allied.
Yeah.
Um, so that part I really like. But yeah, I'm happy to see Shocklands. One thing I noticed, like, I don't know why they always seem to do these big land reprints in very thematic sets where
Hmm.
the art is like super about that thing. Maybe it seems like it's on purpose at this point.
Yeah.
But like even going back to Cons of Tarkir or whatever, my fetch lands now have like dragon themed art and stuff instead of just being awesome art for fetch lands. Now this is like space themed shocks. Maybe it's
Hmm.
to mix it up and
Have
so
something different so
everyone
you can use your own flavor. Because, like,
right.
I wonder how much of it is like, well, we showed you the perfect idyllic breeding pool in
Like we
all
already
of
did
our.
that.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
need something else. The other thing that's interesting is that, like, Shocklands we've only seen in Ravnica sets
Right.
and Unfinity, which is the weird space carnival thing. So they decided that Shocklands can be both on Ravnica or in space, and those are the two places you
Yeah,
can have
that's
it,
it.
which is really funny. Because the Godless Shrine one looks a lot like the one from the Unfinity version.
Infinity. Yeah.
The other thing I
But
wanted to
like, can't we
mention,
just have a generic Godless Shrine that's not set on Ravnica or in space? You know, like we don't have that yet.
well,
So
I guess like the Ravnica ones feel super generic because they don't have like I don't think any of the shock. No, I guess does the Azorius one have like the Azorius symbol on it? I feel like most of the time they don't actually have the symbols. They just look like a
they look
fountain
like
or
I
a.
think they have the sim. A lot of the old ones have the symbol
Oh,
in the
sure,
text
in
box
the
or whatever.
the
But like breeding pool,
watermark.
I guess, is the one where I'm like, it's very Simic-y, and like Simic is a very specific
That's true.
interpretation of blue green.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as we continue with these, I mean, these lands have been around for like 20 years, so like they're uh, they're I they will do kind of. I mean, Magic is going to do whatever the fuck it's going to do. I don't really know. It's hard to stick to like art
That's
styles, whatever.
that's you know to
That's kind of
summarize.
that's the new theme. But the one thing I wanted to mention is that our mana bases are going to get pretty fucked up with Edge of Eternities because we're losing some of the fast lands and some of the pain lands, or some or all the pain lands. I can't remember. So we're going from a world where it's like, yeah, you can play any two color things to, oh, don't forget, you can't play the allied fast lands anymore or whatever.
Right. So the fact that they used to do it in
Yeah,
allied enemies
yeah,
sequences.
makes it kind of weird. But then like, I think Outlaws of Thunder Junction gave us a bunch of fast lands, and so those ones help us with some of these ones, but not all of them. And so
Right.
Stomping Ground is like a card that we get, but the fast land for that we don't get to play anymore. That kind of thing is weird.
Right.
But I enjoy that puzzle. I think it's interesting. Now, am I one who solves that puzzle? No, but I like that it's not always like you have perfect mana all the time and you can do whatever you want. I
I
like that
agree
you
with
kind of
that. Yeah.
have to pick and choose and be like, oh well, until we get a better mana base for this, you can't play this style of deck in these colors.
Yeah. And I think that's fine. The problem is when you get to like you just can't play red black or whatever. Like you just can't play this color pair because it got the shit end of the stick in terms of
Yeah.
which lands it
Yeah,
has
I
right
guess. Or
now.
you're always like, well, if you're gonna play red black, you have to play Grixis because
Yeah, yeah,
it's
exactly.
just better to be able to play Watery Grave
Yeah, it should
and
never be better on your mana to add
to play three.
a
That's true.
color. It should just never be true.
But anyway, so
That's
that
like the
is
dark Jeskai days where it was like, if you're
yeah.
gonna play Jeskai, you might as well add black. It's like, what
Is it
kind of
quite?
mana-based system are we living in? That's insane.
But yeah, so just Verges and Shocks obviously work extremely well together, and that's going to be a really interesting world that we're going to. So cool to see them here. I'm also very excited because I already own 4 copies of all of these, so I don't have to
Yeah.
try to get more. And it's a great way for new players who don't have all the shocks to get them. So it helps you play all the other formats on Arena. Very excited for those. We'll be talking more about shocks in the future, of course.
Pick them up.
Jeff, yeah, pick them up. Do we want to talk about? I think there's a couple cards that are actually exciting to talk about of the new from the new set.
Sure.
One of them is a planeswalker, which
Ooh.
whether it's super exciting or not, I don't know. But Jeff, if you have it in front of you, you can read it. But if you don't, I can also read it very quickly.
I sure do have it in front of me.
All
This
right.
is Tezzeret Cruel Captain. It is 3 mana of any color of your choosing, or no color at all, up to you.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, which is already insane. For a
Yeah.
legendary planeswalker, Tezzeret, it has 4 loyalty. Whenever an artifact you control enters, put a loyalty counter on it. 0, untap target artifact or creature. If it's an artifact creature, put a +1/+1 counter on it. -3, search your library for an artifact card with mana value 1 or less. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. And -7, you get an emblem with at the beginning of the combat on your turn. Put 3 +1/+1 counters on target artifact you control. It's not a if it's not a creature, it becomes a 0/0 robot artifact creature. Um, whew, cool. That's a lot of stuff. Obviously, I'll just get my thoughts out first because I've
Mm-hmm.
played a lot of Tezzeret like way, way back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like Tezzeret. I think it's interesting that Tezzeret is just colorless now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, not sure what that means, but
There,
very like Karn-like in design.
Tezzeret's body has now been, I believe, turned. All his bones have been turned to dark steel. So he is, in
Okay,
fact, that was what he asked for from the Phyrexians. So he is
gotcha.
like more artifact than human now, I guess, or whatever he was before.
Right, gotcha. Yeah, so this feels like Karn meets old school Tezzeret because there's still some Tezzeret
Mm-hmm.
design in here with the classic emblem that turns all your artifacts
Mm-hmm.
into creatures. Um, a 3 mana planeswalker with no color restrictions is crazy on its own. Like this card obviously asks very specific things of you,
Yeah.
but I think the payoff is kind of there that just in that mana cost alone with a 4 loyalty planeswalker at 3 mana of any
Mm-hmm.
you know denomination. That's pretty crazy. And you can immediately go get something with it with the -3 and it sticks around. I don't know, like obviously there has to be, thinking standard in particular, there has to be like the supporting environment of 1 mana
Mm-hmm.
artifacts that you care about. This can get out of hand pretty quickly if you have a bunch of 1 mana artifacts. You get to that 7 real fast.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I could see this. I think probably kind of a standard. Maybe it's an outside shot, but I could see this in older formats where there's just a ton of really high
Yes.
impact, like
Mm-hmm.
cheap artifacts. This seems a little wild to me, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely in older formats, I think this shines the most. But in standard, we did get the Ugin from like the last set,
Yeah,
which does want a similar thing where you want to play a bunch of colorless spells. And so, if you live in a world where you just want to play a bunch of colorless artifacts and you get to do both of these things, have some sort of controlling game plan, and win off of these crazy planeswalkers that have no color restrictions, so you just always hit them on time. Like
yeah.
you just don't
So I
have
don't
to
have to
worry about
worry
it.
about that.
Yeah.
Don't have to worry about
Um,
your lands entering tapped and not
mhm,
having the correct colors to cast this on turn 3.
exactly. Um,
And you just
so
play stuff
or
like ghost vacuums and random
mhm,
shit, right? That
yeah,
like is incidentally good against a lot of stuff. But
you can just play a bunch of things. I don't know if you want to play like Elixir to just shuffle your graveyard back into your library, gain a bunch of life, play a bunch of cards again. I don't know. It seems
maybe, yeah,
there's like I think
have
there's
one of those in there so you can go get it if you need it, you
yeah,
know?
you only need one, right? I think it reminds me of the Gear Hulk, the Celestia Gear Hulk decks, where they were
Right.
playing all those little kind of
Trinkets.
trinket dorky creatures that were doing different things, like the Haywire Mites and stuff. Now,
Yeah.
Haywire Mite will not be legal when this card is available because that was from Brothers War,
Right.
so that will rotate. But all those types of cards
Yeah.
could be could be something cool. But definitely in standard, I think it's more of a long shot. So I agree
Yeah,
with
it
you there.
asks a bit more of you
A
there.
lot.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm just imagining like some sort of older format where you're just pithing needling everything they
Hmm.
do, and
Yeah.
then all
You
those needles turn into, you know, three threes and attack.
that's true. That's pretty funny. Um, and
It's like
like
the somebody won one of this was a few years ago, I guess, but
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. It
yeah.
was it
Oh,
was a
yeah.
vintage tournament, right?
Right. It was the big vintage tournament, and so the winner it was decided because somebody turned their Black Lotus into an elk and attacked with
Hmm.
it and won the game. Yeah. It's like older formats, like these cheap. Imagine vintage, right? Like this
Hmm.
thing pops off with all your Moxen and your
Hmm.
uh,
Absolutely.
Black Lotai
Yeah.
and such.
Yeah, you just
Uh,
play it and dump a bunch of stuff on the battlefield, and then like all of a sudden, it's just it ultimates the turn that it comes down. Like I don't know.
yeah. Like maybe invent you have to have find this sweet spot where like that ultimate takes a while
Hmm.
because it
To
only turns one thing into an artifact or
hmm.
into a creature at a time. So maybe that's too slow for vintage. And,
True.
maybe it's pioneers where this meets
Hmm.
like being powerful kind of thing. But it's just so cheap. This is a cheap planeswalker with a lot of
Hmm.
loyalty
Yes.
that tutors stuff. So
Hmm.
like I feel like there has to be a way to take advantage of that
Hmm.
in some aspect of this game.
Yeah. I really enjoy this design of like cheap planeswalker that can't plus itself, and you have to use the rest of your deck to plus it.
Yeah.
Um, which
And
is
like it pluses itself in that it goes to get an artifact, but
yeah,
like,
but you have to
the
minus three
minus
it, so
two,
it's
it's like a -2 if you can do it the same turn kind of thing.
exactly. But then you'd like on turn three, you might not want to do that, so you're just untapping something, and then you
Yeah.
untap like a creature or like a mana rock maybe or something. I don't know. I don't know if you're
Yeah.
playing like the ring, that's like the icy manipulator and Thran Dynamo thing from
Right.
Final Fantasy, is a possibility. So you can I don't know screw with stuff or tap a couple things or do whatever. But definitely interesting card. I don't know if it's a card I'm going to be trying to play around, but I I'm excited to see if other people do some cool stuff with it.
Zach, I
Um,
have it. The card you're untapping.
hmm.
Magitech Infantry.
Oh no, get out of it! Why would you need to untap that? Oh,
It's an artifact and a creature.
it's
Hello.
true. It is. You're right. You're right.
So you're just
Um,
playing Magitech Infantries and
mhm.
Tezerats.
Great.
The
Uh,
rest of your 60 doesn't really matter
I'm
because
glad that you have two creatures that fetch your four Magitech infantries. Great, perfect.
it's called synergy.
They
It's
both cost.
basically
They both
Splinter Twin,
cost.
if you think
Yeah,
about it.
they both cost 3 mana to go get a a freaking Savannah
Yeah,
Lion.
that's right.
That's too funny. Anyway, Jeff, let's move on to another card. We have a new mechanic. So we need to talk about it. It is kind of like an old mechanic, but they changed it a little bit. I wonder if this is what should have been as opposed to what we have.
It reads better
It reads
than the
better.
previous mechanic, which I am known for hating. So
So this is called the Seriema or something. It's
that
one white
sounds
white.
right.
It's one white white for a 5/5 legendary artifact spacecraft. Rare. It says when it enters, search your library for a legendary creature card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle. And then it also has the ability Station. So it says you can tap another creature you control, put charge counters equal to its power onto the spacecraft. You can only station as a sorcery, and it's an artifact creature if it has 7 or more charge counters on it. And the creature version is a flying 5/5 that says other tapped legendary creatures you control have indestructible. This is obviously like a vehicle, but when you
Yeah.
crew it over several turns, and then it's just live forever.
Yeah.
The question I have is that it has the other, like the ability, other tapped legendary creatures you control have indestructible. That's just on the card, right? You don't have to make it a creature to do that, do you? Or is it saying that only after 7
I
charge
read
counters
that
it
as
gains
part
that?
of the 7 charge counters,
Okay.
just because of the color
Yeah,
difference in the text
there's
box.
a very, very light change of color in the text box.
Yeah, it goes from like light gray to slightly less
Slightly,
light gray.
yeah. So, I think I agree with you that that makes the most sense because the other parts of that card, the flying, the 5/5, are not in play until you have 7 or more. So
Yeah,
I think that's right. But this is kind of cool. Like you do have the ability to just play this card, and then if you have a big board, tap everything and turn it into a creature immediately.
right. Yeah,
So that's kind of interesting, especially if you have a bunch of legendary creatures that you want to like protect from your opponent's next turn. But spacecrafts in general, I like the new play on vehicles, and this plays so much different. And I think that they're trying this. They already tried this with lands, where they have like a land that becomes a creature, but it's a creature forever. So this is a
yeah.
vehicle that becomes a vehicle forever, or a creature. So yeah, I don't know. Does this go in our Tezzeret deck where we try to untap stuff and we can tap things and untap things to make this happen faster or go get legendary things? It could just be a mono white artifact deck. So I don't know. Interesting thing, but
Yeah. I don't know if I'm super excited by this card in particular,
yeah, for sure.
but Station sounds cool. Like one of the annoying things about vehicles is the whole like if you have them and you just have no creatures, they just do nothing, right? Whereas at least this is like, hey, if maybe I have 5 counters on this, like I just need something to get it all the way there. It's not like I wasted all of those early crews kind of thing.
Yes.
And uh, from the other side of the spectrum, playing against vehicles, the annoying thing is that it's like a creature, when it's working, it's a creature that attacks you that you can't interact with at sorcery speed
Yeah.
generally. So this kind of solves the two annoying things about vehicles, which is like when I have them and I don't have like creatures right now, there's no way to make progress. And when I'm playing against it and they just have the creatures to crew it, I often I have to make it awkward on myself in order to kill that vehicle. Whereas this is like they might get one attack in, but it's a creature now, so like you can deal with it the way you deal with creatures. So I this is a simple, I think, like a very elegant, maybe it's the right way to put it, like an elegant way to try to tackle both those things at the same time. And maybe people don't like it and it doesn't come back, but I'm excited to see. I hope this is like a mechanic that we get to play in the limited format and not just like something that appears on the mythic rares or some or the
Yeah,
rares or
yeah.
something, right?
Like yeah, because it's a station and stations are large and you would need lots
Yeah,
of
like
stuff to
some big things, and like there's 5 of them in the set or something. I hope this is a more normal part of the
the environment.
experience because
Yeah.
I think this could be a limited mechanic in particular that plays really well.
Yeah. I also will say that the way that the card looks with the circle and the 7 plus reminds me of playing like the Star Wars card game when I was a kid in Boy Scouts. Like we somebody was really obsessed with that, and so just the way that that looks for whatever reason reminds me of that. So it gives me sci-fi
It
vibes.
definitely does. I was gonna say it makes me think of different card games that do stuff like this, and
Yeah.
I think I was thinking I don't know if it was Star Wars necessarily, but like just I've seen
As,
stuff like this, and
mhm.
it's generally sci-fi, and that's how it looks, and
Yeah.
yeah, and I think like this kind of shows Because sometimes I feel like Magic had this a slightly pretentious thing where it's like we don't need to learn from what other games are doing because we're the
Hmm.
best one. And
Yeah.
to me, this kind of suggests like, hey, so other games have done all these cool things in the past, and we can just draw on that.
Hmm.
Which not only because it's you know, design space for us to use, but like it's nostalgia at this point. Like people have
That's
played
true.
other games
And I've tried
and
those
will be
things.
like, whoa, look at this circle that says 7 plus. Like I
Yeah.
remember that from my days playing X, which is
Whatever
like
game.
they never would have printed this card maybe even 5 years ago, right? With the whole like templating
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
you know, I know charge counters and you could write this in a different way, but they
Hmm.
wouldn't do it on a as a whole mechanic. They would
Yeah.
do it maybe on a card.
On a card that has that thing.
They wouldn't
Um,
create a whole frame for it and all
yeah.
that. Like,
And as far as like these as far as like the implications of this mechanic in other formats, charge counters can be manipulated in different ways, so it's fun where you can just crew it once, or sorry, station it,
yeah, it's a good point too. They
and
didn't
just
make up
yeah,
some station counter or something,
yeah,
right?
it's
They,
just like it is just a charge counter, which is a very inherent Magic thing. Even the art makes it look like it's charged up, so like
yeah.
that's nice. But yeah, you can proliferate this. You can. I'm sure there will be ways to like manipulate counters or whatever. So yeah, I think this is cool. I'm
And
happy to see this.
it kept the core vehicle weirdness, but even like built upon it of the spacecraft stationing other spacecrafts. Like
Right. Yeah.
now it's weirder because they just all be stay creatures forever. Whereas like the vehicles crewing vehicles thing
It was
was like
just
a weird train that
yeah,
ended
that
up in
was
just one
in
creature at
just
the end
one.
of the day.
Yeah.
Now it's like we have spacecraft stationing, but I feel like that makes a little more sense because it's kind of like Star Warsy, where you have these
Big
like ships coming into the
yeah.
bigger ship that um,
Yeah, little ships flying into bigger ships to drop off
right
people
that
to
actually
fly that ship or
happens
something.
in
Yeah.
sci-fi. So
Sci-fi stuff. Yeah, totally. Or you could have one space station docking another one to let people onto it so that it can be powered up to do something. That makes sense, right?
yeah, that's a thing.
Totally. Magic always makes sense in
Yeah,
that capacity.
it was always the dump truck driving the train that I was like, I don't
Yeah.
understand what's happening
What's
here.
happening? What's going on? Jeff, there's only one more card I want to talk about this evening, and I think you can guess what it is. So, would you like to read it for us? Because I love to put you on the spot and see if you know what I'm talking about.
Well, is it so? Oh, wait, are you talking about
No, no,
the?
you're right. You're right. Sorry, I'm not talking about
Okay,
the other one. You're right. You're
okay.
right.
Sothera, the Super Void. 2 black for a legendary enchantment. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent chooses a creature they control and exiles it. At the beginning of your end step, if a player controls no creatures, sacrifice it, then put creature card exiled with it onto the battlefield and control 2 additional +1/+1 counters on it. That is a Super Void.
Yes. Really interesting, but I like how they did this design. So this card is very reminiscent of like Dictative Erebos and like Grave Pact,
Yeah,
where if you are always going to be like equal on creatures, quote unquote. Like if you lose a creature, they lose a creature.
yeah,
But it also has the nice little caveat to not lock down the entire board forever, which says if they don't have any creatures, then you lose this and you get another creature, which is nice, and you can pick whichever one you want. But it doesn't just keep it going. It reminds me of like Pestilence or some of those ones that are like,
Oh, I loved Pestilence
yeah,
back in the
where
day.
you can kill a bunch of creatures with it, but if there's no creatures, it's gone. This
Yeah,
one is the same way, but it's nicer to your opponent, which is more of how Magic is played nowadays. Like, imagine
sure. Yeah.
I and the reason I think about this card is because I used to play a mono black commander deck that had both like Dictate of Erebos and Grave Pact in it, which was very like nobody has creatures but me, and this card's like we can do that, but to an extent, people have to have creatures. So I like this design, and I think it's quite interesting. I don't know if it's like amazing, but I don't know. What do you think about this card?
I love the design. There's a part of me deep down inside that just wants to take a Sharpie and just
Cross
draw
out the bottom.
not the bottom. I want to draw right over that word legendary. I just want
Oh,
to
yeah.
because when you have imagine multiplying the effect, it sounds awesome. But uh, I understand why the word legendary is there. But the person who is plans on sacrificing a lot of creatures wants this to be multiple in play. But even just one of these, if you have a bunch of fodder to sacrifice and then you're able to land this and you have a sack outlet that just has free sack, you're pretty much laughing unless you're against a non-creature deck, right? So this is pretty cool. 4 mana's asking a lot from the
It's a
type of
lot.
deck that can take advantage of this. The fact that it's legendary also makes me hesitate as well because I don't want to be stuck with a bunch of these in that kind of deck. Um, but I think the payoff is there in the right matchup, like because these aristocrat style strategies sometimes just lose to like awesome creatures. And you're just like, well, that one creature, all my guys are working overtime, and that one creature just came in and gave us the business. Um, but I do wonder. I do wonder. I will say I really love the showcase art. I think
Oh, it's so
it's
cool.
so nice. It's just a really ridiculously nice piece, and I kind of want that. The border treatment or whatever, I'm like, whatever, but the actual art piece itself is awesome on the showcase Sothra art.
Yeah. Are you talking about the one that is is textless?
The one I'm looking at is I'm not sure if it's the same artist, the textless one, but it's like there's some Earth being warped
Oh,
into a
yeah, that's
supernova.
that's the borderless treatment. Yeah, that's like super or close to borderless treatment. That's I don't know what it's called, but yeah, super cool. Where it's ripping a world apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a textless version that is like almost like graffiti. It kind of looks like it's from Into the Spider-Verse or something,
Oh,
which is pretty interesting. And like, I love that it's. I think it's the only one that looks like this in the set. It's kind of like, if you know the black hole, you know, like
you're
that's
right.
yeah, you know what this card does.
Oh, I see. It's actually above what? Okay. Yeah.
And
That's pretty cool too. On a card that is not, I always have mixed feelings about textless cards that are not uh, simple.
yeah,
Like if you have textless negate, fine. But
yeah,
when they did textless cryptic command, I was
that
like,
one. I don't know if
sure,
I agree
everybody
with the.
knows the card. Like a lot of people know the card now. Will they in the future? If they're not competitive, they might not know exactly what this card does, and it's just like, and even if I've played this card a lot, someone's like, "What are the exact modes? Like, what do exactly they say?"
In what
I might,
order are they?
yeah, I might be like, "Judge." Okay,
Yeah.
so this card is maybe not quite at Cryptic Command level because it's
No.
more clear, but I might be like, "Wait, does it happen at the beginning of my end step?
I think
Does
it
it
happens
happen?"
at the beginning of their end step.
Right,
right?
like, with the textless card. The
Let me
card
check.
actually says beginning of your end step.
Oh,
So it's
you're. Oh,
it's
I
like
screwed it up. I screwed it up
yeah,
already.
right? So no, the card's brand new, right? So when you play with it and you play with it on
Of
arena, you
course, of
learn where
course.
those triggers happens.
But
But
I was
my
looking at
opponent
the
doesn't know
Jeff.
that.
I was looking at the textless version and thinking for sure. Oh, I know what this
Yeah, yeah.
card does.
Oh yeah,
I,
it
first
convinces you,
question.
right?
First question. Screwed it up. That's so funny. Oh God. Um. Anyway, those are some of the sweet cards from Edge of Eternities. We will see more of those on July 8th is the debut. So we have a few weeks before we're actually in the full swing of spoilers and stuff.
Yeah.
But this is new rotation, and like from Final Fantasy releasing on June 10th on Arena to Edge of Eternities releasing on the 29th of July, that's like 7 weeks. And this is what Magic is now. That's the release pattern. So I guess we got to get used to it.
Yeah.
It really is like pick one deck you're interested in and do that one. Like that's what it feels like.
Right. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think we have one other card we could talk about from like the Avatar set, but let's just save on. Let's just hold on to that one. I don't
We
have
got
much
time.
to say about it. Yeah, we got time. We got time. Months and months of time.
Yeah.
But anyway, folks, sorry. Anyway, Jeff, I jumped into streaming for a second. Jeff, do you have any last thoughts before we go into last call?
Yeah, my last thoughts are, you know, standard may not be as unfun as this Pro Tour makes it sound. So don't give up on it yet. And I'm excited to see what they do with it because I don't think it takes much to kind of
Mm-hmm.
open things up here. But I do think they have to be a bit surgical. They have to, this is one of the ones where they have to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they have to consider some of the things we talked about, okay, if we take away this card, what does the metagame look like? If we take away these two, if we take away these three, what if we put that one back in? They're going to be, they have a jumble of, a few cards that they could consider. And they just have to make sure that if they take something out, it doesn't just get replaced by another unbeatable deck.
Mm-hmm.
And so, um, yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious what they do, to be honest. But I gotta say, mono red is taking a hit. Like red aggressive decks are
Red.
taking a hit. I think
Mm-hmm.
there's just no way around that.
Yeah, it would be crazy if they're just like sleight of hand gone.
Yeah, right. We ban
Like,
children. You guys
yeah.
have been asking for it for years. Shelly's gone.
That would be
Mono red's
ridiculous.
even more rampant.
Oh my god. Yeah, but I think I echo everything that you say, and I'm excited to see what happens next week. So, to talk about more ban announcements then. But for now, let's go to last call. We are going to rate the beer that we drank this evening. This tropical stout Pocket Panther is put to the test to see if it's bronze or mythic. So we rate all of our beers on that scale, just like Arena. However, this has nothing to do with what tier you are in currently. It's just a fun way to rate beers. So don't feel bad when we say that bronze beers are trash. They're horrible. You spit them out, you pour them on the ground. They are disgusting. Blah.
Silver is just bad or kind of uninteresting.
Gold beers are fine, but you wouldn't really drink them again.
Platinum is solid. You would totally drink it again.
Diamond beers are exceptional. You like these a lot and you share them with your friends.
Mythic, these are the best of the best. These are the Ken Yukihiros of the beer world.
That's right. Jeff, what did you think about Pocket Panther? You've been saving it for a
Uh,
while.
I really enjoyed it, actually. I was almost like trying to prolong its lifetime, continuing to drink it. Where I was like, oh, do I want to drink this one or save it? Save that last sip.
Yeah.
Um, it was really tasty. I got a bit of coconut and I got a bit of sweetness for sure. I don't know if I would label this as tropical necessarily. Like it's more tropical than most stouts, but I was kind of just getting like really awesome stout vibes from it
Yeah.
that has a bit and like I said, definitely coconut.
Coconut for sure. Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe that's all they mean. It's like
I think
coconut
that's
is tropical.
I think that's really what it is because I was thinking the same thing where I'm like I don't when I think of tropical it's always like mangoes and pineapples and
I was
stuff but
thinking it'd be a
like
pineapple, yeah, is what
yeah
comes to mind for me.
but like those flavors don't necessarily go with stouts for sure and coconut does and coconut is definitely a tropical flavor. It also kind of reminds me of Christmas a little bit though because maybe just stouts remind me of Christmas so
Maybe, yeah.
there's a little bit of that but
I
also
definitely tasted coconut in this, so
yeah
it's
absolutely
not. Yeah,
yeah it's not like it's lying about that at all.
yeah,
And the molasses for sure. Like the first things I
right,
noticed was like this was sweet, but not in a high ABV way. In a like
right.
this didn't they didn't let this fully eat all the sugars,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
was good, but definitely taste the molasses and definitely taste the coconut.
yeah. I don't know if I could pick out that it was fancy molasses, but
Well, you know how many times have you had fancy molasses in your life?
never.
Yeah, exactly. So how are you supposed to know? How are you
I
supposed to
didn't
tell the
know
difference?
molasses could be fancy, to be honest.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, the byproduct of sugarcane, very fancy. Um,
I
but
guess like honey can be fancy. Sometimes I'm like, oh, that's fancy honey. It's in a
that's
little
true.
jar. That's
Yeah, but I guess if this, I best these just come in little jars. I don't know.
the
That's all you.
honeycomb
Is
is
that all you
still in
need?
there. That's the
Yeah, yeah,
tip off. It's fancy honey.
yeah. The molasses has a piece of sugarcane in it. I don't know,
Yeah.
but
Leave it to the hipsters to figure out what fancy molasses is. But
yeah, probably just go like strangely in a weird way gentrifying a plantation somehow. And you're like, I don't know what are you doing? I don't know.
yeah.
What's happening right now?
How did this happen?
How did this happen? But anyway, I thought this was really tasty. I will say
Yeah.
one of the first things I noticed from it is that it tastes kind of tinny. It tasted like to me,
Okay.
I could taste the what I initially thought was this a steel barrel or a steel ton it was in.
Mm.
But after letting it sit in the glass, I think it was just the can.
Yeah, maybe we let this sit too long. Yeah.
Or not so much like because it dissipated like now and
Oh,
later I didn't
gotcha.
taste it anymore. So it was like I don't know if it was because it just straight from the can it still felt like that, and then as it sat for a second it was different. But that or it also maybe that's part of the fancy molasses that because it kind of turned into sweetness at that point. So
Could be,
that was
man.
my initial reaction that I remembered.
I
But
like that like a lot of stouts are pretty one notes. Like this is a coffee stout. This is a oatmeal stout. This is an
yeah,
oyster stout or whatever. And they
yeah.
really nail you with that one flavor. And I have traditionally actually really liked that. But I actually liked that this one wasn't just about that one thing. Like there is a bit of coffee in there. There's definitely some coconut. Like I think if I had to pick out one thing for me, it was the coconut. Maybe because I'm not used to that in my stouts.
Yeah, for sure.
But and then like a little, yeah, vanilla. I get that. So this felt like almost a different take on the stouts that I'm used to, where it's like the stout's big and bold and about this one thing, and this was like, well, we can make it more balanced and be about a few different things.
Yeah, totally.
I liked it.
So I liked it as well. And the low, like it was sweet and not like a meal, which is not
Right.
normally what I'm looking for. Oftentimes with stouts, I want it to be this big, heavy, it sludges down my throat like like
Yeah.
a bagel. But the fact that it was sweeter and lighter than that, I liked the coconut. The ABV's low. All these led me to like Diamond, where I'm like, I thought this was really tasty. It's different, and I would definitely show this off to people, especially people who try to tell me that they don't like stouts, or
Yeah.
they're like, ugh, it's so heavy. Like I feel like I just had a meal. I'm like, no, try this one.
That's a good point too on the convincing people that stouts aren't the aren't public enemy number one in the beer
Yeah,
world.
it's just,
Um, This was an easy diamond for me as well.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I think like after a few sips, I was like, oh yeah,
Hmm.
we're we're at least diamond here, and I think
Absolutely.
I landed in diamond. So
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, with like I think this could have pushed Mythic, depending on the beginnings of it. So I definitely want to get more Pocket Panther, and
yeah,
also the name is hilarious and like
yeah.
straight like it doesn't sound like a tropical stout, you know. Like what is a Pocket Panther? It sounds very sexual, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Like
so
there's a lot going on.
there's a
It
lot.
makes me think of the Pink Panther
Yeah,
just
yeah.
because of the alliteration with the panther.
Totally.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Anchorman with like
Yeah.
what was his
It was
cologne?
a jaguar or
Something
something
like
like that?
that. But it was some sort of large cat that also
Yeah.
I could see you pulling out Pocket Panther from like your breast pocket or something. So
Yeah, it sounds like the
mhm.
works 60% of the time every
Every
time.
time. Yeah,
Hello. Yeah.
yeah. Like a Sex Panther or something? I can't remember.
Oh, it might have been Sex
A Sex
Panther
Panther,
actually.
yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, great beer. Fairweather does not disappoint.
Yeah.
Actually, no. Sorry. They do disappoint in one category, which is I want you to make short sleeve button up shirts of your cans so I can buy them
Right.
and have all of them. That is the
I keep
only
forgetting
thing.
to give them that feedback every time I go.
I need to like just write to them and be like, please do this. I want it so much. So anyway, that's the
We'll
one
just
short.
invite them all over for a magic draft, get them drunk,
Mhm.
and then just hype them up on this idea.
Exactly. They all play Magic, right? Well,
Yeah,
we'll
few
teach
of
them.
them. And
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
But yeah. Anyway, Jeff, let's go to closing time. Let's wrap this show up. As always, you can reach us at Arena Regulars on Instagram and Blue Sky.
Can also find us on Arena itself under the username Arena Regulars Podcast.
If you want to talk to me personally, you can find me at the regulars underscore Zach at and Instagram and TikTok. Sorry, it's a whole mouthful. I'm regular Zach on Blue Sky, Twitch, YouTube, all those places. But Jeff, where can they find you?
Best place is our Discord channel if you want to come chat about the Pro Tour or about what you think's going to come get banned, or you just want to play in some really awesome drafts. We do those once a month. They are Arena Cube Peasant drafts,
Yeah.
which means that you don't have to use a rare or wild cards on them.
Mhm.
It's a really awesome experience, and just join our Discord channel. Link for that's in the show notes.
That's right. Also, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, follow us on Spotify. Leave us a review there as well. Go to our YouTube channel, give us a like, give us a bell or whatever it is. All of that means a lot to us. But honestly, just hearing your feedback means the most. This has been the Arena Regulars.
Reminding you that Ken finally won. Way to go, Ken. We love you.
Yay! Good job, Ken. Good night. All right, that's fine.